Welcome to Strength Chat with your host, that's right, the mad scientist of strength, myself, Chris Duffin. To my very far left, we have Dr. Rudolph.
New world champion, Dr. Rudolph.
New world champion.
Just saying.
Well, not
in
new.
Again.
In the, I've never looked, I haven't seen a mature category. What actual category was that?
Very, very mature.
What category is that? What weight?
55 to 59, 220, yeah.
Impressive.
Oh, no, 65 to 69. Whoops, that was a decade ago. He's laughing. No, I was just 49 still.
But look, you have birthdays to look forward to because next year...
It's a new age group.
New age group.
I can't wait till tomorrow, actually.
More records to take.
More records. Oh, and to my right, the one, the only, the wizard of training, Mr. Brandon Sin. So,
hey, I sent you your training.
You did? Yay! I'll be.
Are you going to start training?
I am.
Yeah.
I only missed a few days of training. Like, I don't know what you get. I trained more than you guys. Shut up.
I trained yesterday.
You did not.
I did.
No, you did not.
I'm pretty sore today too.
You
trained after the long flight back from San Antonio?
Mm-hmm. Sure did.
Tell us about that flight.
I trained in San Antonio. In the heat. I trained for a whole 15, 20 minutes.
The people in San Antonio were pretty great. San Antonio itself sucks.
The heat sucked in.
No offense to anyone who is there or people who live there, but us northerners cannot handle
I was getting
humidity.
text messages from Chris all weekend. Is that what have you done to me? And he sends a screenshot of the weather channel where it's 95 and 95 degrees.
99. It was 99 and what percentage humidity? I don't know. I've never looked at that before, but all I know is
I'll give you a really good example of how humid it was. We were in the hotel, had my backpack, computers in my backpack. There's a 5-minute car ride to the gym. I threw my backpack in the trunk, took it out of the trunk after 5 minutes of the car ride, and my computer was literally wet from the humidity.
Fogged over. Couldn't see the screen.
It was disgusting. And that's how our bodies were all day. It was
that was before the hail and rainstorms.
The rain made it so much
So
worse.
then it got worse. And then San Antonio decided it was going to try to keep us there.
And the gym had a swamp cooler, but no AC. And I actually didn't realize it, but I had kind of lost my voice from yelling the whole weekend during the
over the swamp cooler.
Yeah. So it's actually probably a good thing Brady didn't go because there's nobody
would have heard Brady. Nobody,
Me with a decent voice.
No.
We were both literally yelling the whole seminar.
But the swamp cooler was pretty effective.
It was.
Yeah.
As long as you were standing next to it. On the other side of the gym, it was brutal.
I, of course, realized this Sunday afternoon as I've been sitting on the other side of the platform to present.
I was presenting right in front of it the whole time.
That Brandon and John were sitting directly in front of the swamp cooler for the last 2.5 days. And I go over there and I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah, there's a big difference, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then we sat in the airport for 4.5 hours as
they shut the airport down.
Shut everything down.
Yeah.
Shut everything down.
You guys from the Pacific Northwest, it makes it tough when you go somewhere else, and we're just not used to that.
We're fortunate, yeah.
We were fortunate.
Yeah. Big time. Well, we did have some good Mexican food, though.
Yeah, we did.
That was good.
Yeah,
I would guess you're close to the border.
I knew that it was at lunch on Saturday.
Yeah.
There's a couple people. They're like, "Oh yeah, you should go to this place with us." And then they turned to each other and they said, "Wait a minute, do they even speak English there?" And I'm like, "We're going there. That's where I want to be.
That's the best.
That's the place I want to be."
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I was in Houston the weekend before when you guys were down at the U.S. Open in San Diego, and it was hot and humid in Houston.
It was 100 degrees every day.
Yeah.
It felt like 1,000. I would rather die.
So
I could not ever live there.
Our coach Darrington is still down there right now. He's mutinying, but he can't get enough of it, and I don't know how.
He loves it. That's where he's from.
The heat is a different
thing.
thing.
So it's probably not getting any better. We're going to Chicago next month.
That's what I was just thinking about.
At the end of June, it's going to be hot and humid there, and then we're going to be in New York in September, and that can be miserable as well. So
I'm going to hurt my back.
Gotta get like you did last year.
Just hang out in the hotel room. You're the one that didn't want me to deadlift you this time.
Yeah,
Friday
of course
night.
I did. I was ready to go. I'm pretty sure you just did it to show off because there's people training in there.
I was planning on deadlifting beforehand, before I even...
He always lifts better when the camera's on. People are watching. So
anyway, let's get rolling with today's podcast.
We haven't been over for a while.
We're not traveling at least for another 3 weeks now. So welcome home for a little bit. So today we've got a local individual here with us. We've got Ryan Lockard of Specialty Athletic Training, and really excited to have Ryan on here because many of you may have been aware that I did a lot of fundraising and awareness stuff for
fundraising.
I
did a lot of fundraising for everybody.
That's nice, Daffy.
I need to have some more caffeine before I fall asleep.
Emma Fudd.
Shut up.
I did some fundraising. That's going to be a clip. It's not
Fundraising.
We're just gonna cut your part out. All right, now, yes, I did some fundraising and awareness, squatting 800 for 30 days, and for our Special Olympics, and that's what Ryan's focus on is not necessarily the Special Olympics, but the specialty in specialty athletic training is dealing with those special needs client, and that is the focus of your center, right?
Yeah.
And of our podcast today.
And of our podcast, yeah.
Thanks for being here, Ryan.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
So one thing, tell us a little bit about your place and how you got started doing what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So Specialty Athletic Training, I founded back in June of 2012. So this June will be our 6-year anniversary. So it's come a long way since then. So kind of how it came about was back in 2007, I was playing, or actually 2006, I was playing football at Lewis and Clark College and tore my ACL. And it was in the third game of the season, so I was able to get a medical red shirt. And so in 2007, I was looking for a part-time job where I could work, play ball, and then also find that easy 2-credit class for my last senior semester. So I went through a lot of classes, and none of them were really working out the way I wanted to. So I had an independent study, created an independent study, and really I was working with a 13-year-old boy with autism at the time as his one-on-one aide, and wrote a paper on autism, and that was my 2 credits. So just working with him, I saw the need for fitness, and just saw that the expectations were set lower than his peers for himself, especially in PE. So in PE, he was in class maybe of 20 other students, and everyone else would have to run 4 laps around the gym, and he would have to run 2 for a warm-up. And I was like, well, physically, you can do everything they're doing, but what's going on? And spoke with the teacher, and spoke with Ben. So Ben's the one that I was initially working with. He still sees us 4 days a week. He's the one that the logo's designed after. He's like a little brother to me now. And he actually is 24 now. So I've known him for a while.
Awesome.
And so I started speaking with the teacher. He's like, well, Ryan, he starts having some behaviors after those 2 laps. And I was like, okay, well, we still got to force him to run the 4 laps or at least finish so it's not any different than his peers. And spoke with Ben, and he didn't like to run because he hated to sweat. And it was one of those things where the more I learned about autism and the more I learned about Ben, it was a sensory deal. No one ever explained to Ben why your body sweats. So it freaked him out, right? So I always
He thought he was dying.
He thought he was dying. Or
bleeding from his pores.
Or something else was going on, right?
Yeah.
So I always kind of compare it to if we woke up with a large bump on our arm or a weird growth, we'd be freaked out and want to know what the heck was going on. So so that really kind of was my aha moment. And so we started doing other things with him. So just with my natural fitness background, we started doing some other weight training, or we're doing some stuff on the cardio. When he went home, he'd do some stuff on his treadmill at home, and he'd start verbalizing other things to me. So he'd say, Ryan, my heart is feeling it's coming out my chest, or my legs, they feel weak, like sensations that we all kind of just take for granted, and kind of know that our bodies, it's normal for our bodies to do that.
That's how it's going to react. Yeah.
Exactly, and so I worked with Ben for 1.5 years. And then ended up having the opportunity to play football overseas. So I went to France to play football, and came back, and the season's over there in the spring. So I came back, I was coaching football at Lewis and Clark, and the guy I trained to replace me didn't work out. And so the family asked me back to train someone new, with the understanding that I was planning on going back overseas to play again. And so that happened for another 2 years. So I went to Denmark, came back, coached at Lewis and Clark, and then I went to Poland again. And same time, I was still working with Ben during my time in Portland. And I met my now wife right before I left for Poland, and came back and knew I wasn't going to be going to Europe anymore, and I was kind of more grounded in Oregon, and also at the same time the guy I trained worked out. So I'd been doing my research this whole time, didn't see anyone really doing what I had envisioned doing, and So I was working with another family, another behavioral center in the area, and during one of my interviews, he said, "Ryan, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?" And I said, "Well, I have this idea for fitness, not working one-to-one necessarily in a behavioral setting, but definitely working with the same population in a different way." And he said, "Well, that's a great idea. Let us know how we can help." And so they had a mom that was a tutor for kids with ADD and ADHD that used exercise as a way to help them focus when they needed a little break. And we sat down for coffee, and she's like, "Ryan, I might have a potential client for you." And that client never panned out, but it was enough for me to go home and form the LLC, and that was June 12th, 2012. So since then, we've worked with over 300 different individuals. The youngest client's been 3, oldest has been 63, and now have 4 locations in the Portland metro area that we train out of. So
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what else. I mean, you told some stories about like what you've seen with men, but as a whole in those population, like what outputs have you seen from implementing, strength training or physical conditioning with the individuals you're working with? Yeah,
I think there's a lot that with this population. One is typically the one that's overlooked, especially within the fitness industry, right? So. And they're also the ones that fall through the cracks in the typical PE system. And so fitness is definitely one of the major components that they need in their life more than anyone else. They tend to live a sedentary lifestyle. We all know that that the obesity numbers are rising. It's even rising at an increasing rate for this population. So
even higher than the general population.
Even higher than the general population.
That's correct.
And so you look with the adults, especially, the adults are often unemployed. A lot of times fitness isn't necessarily one of their favorite things because of a past experience they may have had at school or some other time in their life. And so that's kind of our focus, is making fitness fun for them. So, we don't do a traditional, we do an intake, but not necessarily traditional, we don't look at their BMI, we don't necessarily put them on a scale, we don't, we kind of try to take that all out of it and really make it more where it's fun and a very positive environment for them to come to, and then focus on making little changes within their diets, which will add up over to huge changes over long term. So a lot of the times what we do is we don't train them any differently than we would train anyone else. I volunteer I was talking to Rudy about this. I also volunteer as a strength coach at Lewis and Clark College, and the programming itself is going to stay the same, right? So our client sees us once a week. We'll do a whole body workout. We'll do a warm-up and then target the large muscle groups and work our way down, but also giving them a choice in what they do. So, for me, it doesn't really matter what exercise they do if it's targeting the same muscle group. We all have our favorite exercises to do. Rudy is going to like to do different things that you would like to do, right, Chris? So, or you guys might like to do the same things too, but at the same time, it gives them more ownership of their program. And then if they come in 2 days a week, it'd probably be still a full body split. But if they do come in 4 days a week, then we start increasing a little bit more cardio, throw a cardio day in there, throw a free day in there, and give them more ownership of what they're doing. And provide more options, because they're always used to having people tell them what to do. And
I was saying that ownership thing's probably got to be a pretty useful or empowering thing for them.
Absolutely.
Having that control.
And at the same time, we're one of the places that will sit there and listen to them talk about Minecraft or My Little Pony or a lot of other things that their parents or their other therapists they've always heard over and over and over again. And so for us, we try to use those and relate it to take their general interests and relate it back to their training programming, right? So we'll name exercises after some of their favorite Harry Potter characters, or that type of thing, to really make it where their interests are ingrained with the exercises as well.
So we all know strength training it's more of a marathon than a sprint, but I'm sure working with people over time, you're seeing physical changes. Are you seeing what I would anticipate changes in self-esteem with them? Is that a major goal and achievement there?
Yeah, you kind of killed it right there on that one, Rudy. So that's a big thing. Is for me, I think the physical piece is going to take care of itself over time, like you mentioned. And so the biggest thing is really building up their self-esteem and self-confidence and making it a positive experience for them. You'd be surprised on how, maybe not surprised, but it's very common for a lot of these kids or even these adults to have a low self-esteem or self-confidence because of all the negative things they've heard about themselves throughout the years. So one of the things that we do is we'll never speak negatively about our clients in front of the clients. We have it set up where I always speak with the parent ahead of time to kind of get the past history. So I'll meet with them in person or have coffee with them or talk to them on the phone. And that way when they actually come to the facility for the first time, everything's positive. Everything's positive. We'll be able to build that relationship. If they have a hard session or something happens, still at the end of the day, it'd still be, hey, little Jimmy did a great job today. You really worked hard. I'll make sure to send you an email or give you a phone call later in the day and kind of inform you on some other things that may have happened. That way, everything in front of the child or like I said, the adult client stays positive and they want to come back. Because the other part too that I always tell all of our employees and all of our student interns is that no one's inherently bad. There's no bad people. These adults aren't born, that just wanting to cause havoc or have a hard time.
They didn't choose that.
Or they don't want to have a meltdown in the gym. They don't want to have a behavior. And so it's always identifying those triggers. There's always a trigger behind every behavior and trying to identify those triggers and avoid them, but also realizing, so why did little Jimmy have a hard day today? Okay, maybe he didn't get enough sleep that night and maybe the parent didn't tell us. Maybe they changed medications and we weren't aware. Maybe maybe they're nonverbal and they're having a hard time communicating what they want. Or there's a lot of different things that go into it. But just knowing that all of our clients inherently are good, and usually our clients are the sweetest people that you'll ever meet and work with, which makes it awesome. And coming from a college coaching standpoint, they're actually a lot easier to train because they're not as hard-headed as a lot of the college athletes that you'll end up training, especially in the middle field.
They don't think they know more than you.
Exactly, right? So you talk to them about breathing, you talk to them about form, they're going to listen, which makes our job, besides working with the clientele, it makes it fun.
Yeah, that's great. You can almost transpose that, Brandon. It sounds like a lot of the same things we do with our normal athletes in terms of assessment and correction and choice of.
That's what I was going to say. Is a lot of these things. It seems like it's almost magnified for you, but it's the same things with regular populations where putting ownership in someone is huge, especially in our space where we have to get some level of buy-in, but they also have to be incredibly accountable to the process and to themselves. So I think having some level of freedom and ownership in probably any level of fitness or strength and conditioning is vitally important for one, staying in it, and two, like really enjoying the process and getting more out of it than just physical improvements.
No, absolutely. I think the other thing that we see a lot of times too is with the parents where, we'll see their improvements within the gym, right? Like, okay, their weights that they're putting up are, higher, and they're able to run a faster mile time or whatever we might be tracking at that time, but it's really cool to hear the other stories where, Ryan, they took the bus for the very first time independently. They were able to walk independently up the bus for the first time. Or, Ryan, we've been able to go on a family walk with our dog for the first time. Or we go on hikes or whatever it might be that's very family-centric. And that's what we always try to get to. Like, yeah, we would love to see your child as much as possible for us, as far as a business. But I always tell the parents that my job and my trainer's jobs are to work ourselves out of the job. We want your child to be as independent as possible and have that self-esteem and self-confidence to go out and go to their regular PE class and take weight training, or feel comfortable enough to go to the local gym and work out on their own, or even if we provide a program for them that they know how to do it and feel confident enough to go do it in a regular gym.
That must be really rewarding when you get those calls or emails from the parents or caretakers.
Absolutely.
About the effects on other things, aspects of the life, right?
Yep. No, absolutely. And that's one of the things that brightens up your day, no matter how hard of a day it might have been at work, right? I think that we very seldom have a hard day or rough day at work. We'll have a client or two every once in a while that might have a hard day, but really putting it back in perspective is trying to identify, what made it a hard day for them today, right? And really, once you put that thing in perspective, it really makes it makes it less personal on you, because I think we have we kind of take it in a lot as humans and try to figure out and internalize it, and by putting things in perspective that way and not really making it where, I had a hard day because so-and-so had a hard day, but really be like, what caused that? Why did they have a harder session today? Because that's not normally how they are. Okay, well, let's try to figure that out, so the next time that's a better session. Next time that maybe it was a miscommunication between the parents and ourselves, let's fix that. Let's make sure that's an open line, and if they're changing medications or they didn't get enough sleep, let us know. Maybe we need to skip a session and just try to get them back onto even keel, and where they're their happy-go-lucky selves. And not saying that they shouldn't train at on only good days, right? You're gonna have those rough days. We all do. We're all tired and stuff like that. But at least gives a heads up, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Well, just kind of thinking down another path here. I was just wondering what it's like with kind of your recruiting talent for the types of trainers that are successful or enjoy those roles, or is it any different, or are you looking for different, personality or skill sets with, just as you've grown and expanded and hiring training and staff?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Chris. I think one of those things that we've just been very fortunate. So I've always been able to hire from within. So we have a student internship program set up at Lewis and Clark College where psychology or econ or biology majors, we're able to tailor the internship towards their majors, which is pretty cool. But we've been able to get a good pool of qualified college kids from that as well. So one of my lead trainers right now is Andrew Traver, and he's been with us. He was one of our first interns, and he played actually football for me. He was one of my linebackers when I was coaching linebackers at Lewis and Clark, and you just get to know the quality of the people that are that way and the quality of the kid that ends up coming up. And so he was actually our first full-time employee, and so I already had that relationship with him for a while, and knew he was great with our population to see him work with. So that was kind of our natural recruitment is that way. So we've kind of extended that too, where we also have student interns coming from Portland State, Concordia, and then Lewis and Clark. I'm trying to think and we had one from Northwestern University up in Washington as well. But I really look for the quality of the people more than anything else. I think that for your strength and conditioning cert, we can help you get whatever certification that we're looking for you to have. So all my lead trainers have their CSCS through the NSCA. And that's kind of what we've kind of wanted them to go towards. More so than anything, just because I think that the fitness industry, as you guys know, is going to be oversaturated, and it's harder to tell people who knows what. And even if you have a certain cert, doesn't make you a great coach by any means, right?
Yeah.
And so because you also have great people that are great coaches but don't have the certification behind their name. So my big thing is looking for quality people and making sure that their heart's in the right place. I think it goes without saying too that a lot of our trainers have had a collegiate background as well, just because it's kind of hand in hand with the passion for fitness overall for a lot of our trainers. But yeah, I mean that's like so a short answer, Chris, is that we just look for the right people and look for the biggest heart. Because we can always train them how to handle certain situations. Or
I think that's pretty applicable to any good business, in my opinion. Is everybody looks for skill sets a lot of times first, and skill sets can be acquired.
Absolutely,
but
passion is something that you're not necessarily
competent. Yeah,
learn. And to become passionate, like your guys have to be, I think that's an important skill to have.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And most coaches, really great coaches, if you in any sport at any level, I think that if you said what's the most rewarding thing is to see your student, your player, your athlete improve and get better, and whether it's physically and or mentally, that's the most rewarding thing about coaching.
Oh, I 100% agree. And that was the other part too, is one of our other trainers, Emily, who runs our Vancouver location, she was living in Lake Oswego and was working out at Lewis and Clark, and saw what we did, and saw me in the gym. Was like, hey, how do I get involved? And it just happened to be the right time where we were actually looking to hire another trainer, and got to know Emily a little bit more and had her start working with some of our clients, and then now she's full-time up at our Vancouver facility. So yeah, so we always look for, like you said, the quality of people, and then teach them the skill sets after that.
Yep. Definitely behaviors over skill sets.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
So do you ever take some of your athletes, after you've been working with them for a while, do you ever get them into a competitive environment where they actually are involved in a strength performance, either strongman or powerlifting or something?
So yes and no. So we definitely have them before. I would say a lot of our clients, it's more of, like I said, making the fitness fun for them.
Yeah.
A majority of our clients don't necessarily have that natural competitive edge to them, or a lot of our clients too, like when I was talking about Ben, the century piece is a big deal. So they're not used to that, especially on the eccentric movement of a bench, right? They're not used to keeping that control. They might be really good at pressing the weight up, but it's really more of the eccentric piece that they have to control. And just that natural grind, that natural feeling of that weight being pushed and that strain it puts on your muscles, that's not everyone's favorite. That's not always our favorite, but we know what we're doing and we know, what the end result is. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest part, I think, to get over. So, we use knowing each client's going to be a little different. So just for Ben, for example, because, he's my guy, when he was in middle school, I introduced him to Happy Gilmore. And he really took a liking to Happy Gilmore, and so we kind of used Happy Gilmore to introduce him to golf. But I still use Happy Gilmore when we train him. If he's having a hard time, especially when we're starting to add more weight, I tell him to go to his happy place. And he has that as a point of reference about going to his happy place, liking Happy Gilmore, and knowing that everything's going to be okay and doing the weight. So because of that sensory piece, it's been difficult to have him, in some competitions. However, at the same time, we've had a client that was actually training for the Paralympic Games for Rio for track and field. So we actually had him compete at a Lewis and Clark college match or a college track race and a George Fox Invitational as well. And so seeing that was also cool. I think the other cool thing about that was kind of like what we were talking about before as far as the integration piece and the inclusiveness is seeing the other college athletes, even that they were racing against one of our athletes, seeing how supportive they were. They were all giving him hugs after the end of the race. They were all encouraging him when they were doing the warm-ups and stuff like that. And so that was huge.
Sort of huge inclusive feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I always tell people that I think everyone else in that kind of environment gets more out of it than our athletes, and you learn a lot more about yourself and a lot more, and you break down those social stigmas. And I think just for society's sake, it's a way better feel.
Absolutely.
So when you're building training plans for all of your athletes, what's that initial process look like? It sounds like you have incredibly competent trainers who work with you. I mean, they have one of the highest regarded certifications out there in the CSCS. What does the process look like? Because I imagine it takes a little bit of time to learn, what your athletes or clients are enjoying, what they're not enjoying. What's that process look like from start to ongoing?
Yeah, no. So like I said, our intake, right? It's going to be where we talk to the parent. We have them sign all the forms, the liability forms. We have a contact information form, and within that too, we have like their medications, and we know some other history that they may have had. That's also the time that if they have any PT or OT reports, so physical therapy or occupational therapy reports that they want to share with us, they share with us at those times. So we actually get a lot of referrals from physical therapists and occupational therapists. Because we kind of generalize the fitness a little bit more. Not necessarily we're doing a whole lot of different exercises that you might see in a physical therapy session, but we're doing it in a different type, right? Trying to make it more fun. It's not just a clinical setting. We're actually in a gym. So things like that. So we take all that stuff into consideration and then kind of just put them through then they come to the facility for what we call our consultation, but it's really more of a meet and greet. We want to make sure all of our clients are comfortable and familiar with their surroundings before we actually start training them. And kind of build that relationship with them before. And then the next time is actually when they come to see us is actually when we start training them. So everything we start super basic because like Rudy was talking about, the big self-esteem and self-confidence thing is probably the biggest thing that we want to get them to increase. And once they become intrinsically motivated, that's really when we have them. So a lot of the stuff is super basic that we start out with, and also depends on the age of the kid or the adult, the age of the client. We'll do a lot of, for our first progression for a squat, we just do a basic assisted stand, right? So we have varied levels of boxes, and have them do one. That's too easy. We kind of generally tip it down, and then start adding weight. I'd say we have very few clients that actually do an actual barbell back squat. We do a lot of goblet squats, a lot of dumbbell stuff. We do a lot of dumbbell stuff in general because it's kind of evens out the body a little bit more for our clients because they might be strong on one side of the body, but we want to definitely equal it out where they kind of hide that with the barbell. And quite honestly, the barbell sometimes a little bit too much weight anyway for a lot of their clients. So one of the major things we start with too for chest is just a wall press, just a wall push-up, and then using the barbell and doing a modified push-up that way, and eventually get them to the floor to do a push-up or doing some dumbbell work with them as well. So there's kind of different progressions that we do along the way, but similar to what you would do with any typical client. You want to make sure you see the range of motion, their patterns, right, and making sure that they're staying true to the form and making sure that they're doing everything correct before we add anything. And then we do a lot of core work. So a lot of the clients, a lot of the parents, that's usually the big thing, is a weak core. I'm a firm believer if you're doing everything else right, you're going to be working your core at the same time. So a core should be, just as an accessory. But we definitely do a lot more of the core work towards the end of the session too, to make sure we incorporate that as well.
Now, are the majority of the sessions one-on-one sessions, or do you do group training with your clients?
So that's a great question too. So it's actually different. So in Portland, it's primarily one-to-one. We have some small groups, and it's and by Portland I mean the Southwest, Southeast, and also the Hillsborough location too. And it's primarily one-to-one. And then the small groups are like if we know a parent's looking for a group and we know a client would be a good fit with another client, then we talk to the parents and put them in a group, because the socialization piece is always huge for a lot of the parents and a lot of our clients as well. And Vancouver is a little different. Vancouver is almost all small group training. We actually have a contract with the state where they're able to use their disability funds to train with us, and so because of that, the state just feeds us clients, and based on that's why we've been able to make it more group training compared to the one-to-one stuff. Yeah,
that's really interesting. Now, I think it's definitely a very noble cause to go after, and I know for those who want to get more involved with it, either from a coaching standpoint, they're really interested in working with this population. Maybe they had a relative or someone like that who had a special need, or they just want to help either coaching or just from a contribution standpoint. What's the best means to go about that?
So the best means, just send me an email. It's Ryan@specialtyathletictraining.com. You could always send us a direct message on Instagram at Specialty Athletic Training or at our Lockard, and I handle both of those accounts. So either way you send it to me, I'd get it. So we actually have a lot of clients, or not a lot of clients, but a lot of coaches across the nation that will reach out saying, hey, this is something I've always thought about doing. What's my next thing? I think the biggest thing is really, for anyone wanting to get involved within their own community, is really start volunteering, and before people trust you with their own kids, they have to know that your heart's in the right place as well. And that was probably my biggest hurdle when I was first starting the company. I was 27, no kids, and when I was speaking with parents, like, well, how do we know that you're going to be good with our children? And so I've always been comfortable with parents,
or not bad with,
or not bad. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so it's more of I've always told parents, like, hey, I'm more than comfortable with you guys being this close when I'm training your child, because I know that that we're working with a very vulnerable population, and you have every right to question whether or not we're going to be taking good care of your kids and doing the proper training. And so you'll have those parents every once in a while. They'll be this close, and then eventually they kind of fade away. Most of the clients now, the parents will just drop them off, go grab coffee or go do some work upstairs, and then come back down towards the end of the session. The financial contribution, we're set up as a for-profit. So my big thing is making sure that we get involved with other local nonprofits and give back in that way. So we do several stuff. We do stuff all the time with local nonprofits and local events in the Portland area, and that's kind of what I would suggest for anyone looking at doing it, is doing the same thing in their community. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a long-winded answer to the question.
We have a grandiose goal at Kabuki Strength of that too. But our goal is making the world a better place through strength, and that's a big statement. But the population that you're working with is part of the world, and if there's a way that we can help reach out to that population, we'd love to be able to do that too. But from your standpoint, obviously the population you work with is not just limited to the Portland, Vancouver area. There's
right.
people like that around the country and around the world. Do you have ideas of how you might expand your reach to be able to reach more of those in that population?
Yeah, so actually it's interesting. So the logo just got trademarked within the past month. The name itself, Specialty Athletic Training, is in the process. We should be hearing back about that within the next couple weeks, because that's kind of what I was looking at. It's like, okay, do we look at franchising? Do we look at licensing? The difference between those? after speaking to an attorney about that kind of stuff, it might not be the best way for us to expand. So what we're actually looking at doing is doing more either workshops or consulting, from my point of view, just because of the liability factor that falls into that piece of everything. If we were working with the typical population, it'd be a lot easier to franchise or do the licensing model. But I can't have it where, even if we vet someone else in, on the East Coast and they start doing something under specialty athletic training's name, and then next thing something happens with one of their clients, it's a very high incidence of, molestation within this population, and that's something that I can't ever have come back to our name.
Can't risk that. Yeah.
And so that's the piece where goes back to more workshops and more consulting to help others, and like you said, make the world a better place through strength. Do the same thing, educate others to make sure that they're able to, one, also serve their community and reach more people. Because just like you guys can't reach everyone, but there's different ways that you can help a lot of more people to help others too.
Yeah. Well, we commend you. That's great, Ryan. Thanks for being here today.
Do we have a date for our meet, Rudy?
Actually, I just emailed Cassandra, waiting for her to get back to me. She has to coordinate with Special Olympics Oregon to do that. But yes, in October, we're planning to do a joint meet with Special Olympians and our normal population. I don't know what we call
Typical
population in a combined meet, sort of a pro-am kind of a combination where you have a buddy system and come up with a scoring system where your score and the Special Olympian score is combined for a total. It'd be kind of fun. So integrating them in a mainstream meet.
That's cool. How big do you think we'll make it from a competitor standpoint?
Don't know yet. You know how much we can handle in a day, but I'm thinking if we did 60 athletes, 30 and 30, we can handle that in a day.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that we'd love to be a part of as well. And please keep us in mind when you guys are moving forward, because I know we have several athletes that might want to compete, and we
or
definitely
just
have,
watch
or just watch. Absolutely,
yeah. That maybe they'd be inspired to get involved.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and at the very least, the parents can create that awareness too. So definitely love to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think probably the more the better in that case.
Yeah. So again, it's Ryan at specialtyathletictraining.com. Is that right?
That's right. That's a long one, I know.
Okay. Well, we were originally at Elite Performance Center. It took so long to type out our Chris or Rudy at Elite Performance Center. I kept putting 3 C's in instead of 2. But
that's why you just have to save it in your computer now. I just couldn't get over the acronym SAT. I couldn't do it, so I'm going to write it out. But
yeah. Anyway, well, that's great. Thanks for being here today. Anybody else have anything for Ryan?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we're all looking forward to contributing, year after year, hopefully with the Pro-Am style meet, assuming it goes well. I know that we've been inspired by one of our coaches, Cassandra, who works with the Special Olympics Powerlifting Oregon. So yeah, I think we're just kind of excited to kind of see where it goes and see what kind of impact, big or small, that we can have.
Yep.
So, Ryan, thank you again for your compassion and working with that population and sharing your experiences with us. And hopefully we've inspired others listening out there today to get involved as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me, guys.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Great. That's a wrap.